I got a fantastic question about leash reactivity on my training video where I show how to train your dog to calmly walk past other dogs. I thought I would share my answer here for everyone. So the question was, I have a few issues with reactivity in my 8-month-old rescue pup. I cannot guarantee an area where all dogs will be on leash as people do what they like here. I don't have anyone to practice with. My dog will only focus on the dog and will not look at me and will not take treats while outside, especially when focused on another dog or sight or smell. Any advice at all? I love this question. So before I get to specific parts of that question, I do want to point out that I live in a city of well over 1 million people, which I think sometimes can be hard to tell from my videos. I strategically choose locations where there's going to be enough distance between the dog and their trigger so we can have successful training. So it might not be obvious from a lot of my videos that I actually live in a really busy city. A lot of my reactivity clients actually live in condos downtown in the heart of the city, so one thing I've been considering doing is filming a city reactivity series where I show a condo dog and how I work with them if I couldn't leave the downtown core. Let me know in the comments if that's something that you'd be interested in. So now to answer her specific training question. If you live in an area that has a lot of off-leash dogs, one of the first things I suggest is to try training at the top of a hill. By moving to higher ground, it gives your dog a better vantage point, it makes it harder for off-leash dogs to approach, and it gives you time to retreat safely if they do try.
Things that I do for videos.
I also encourage you to plan ahead for how you would handle an aggressive off-leash dog if approached. I will usually start with a treat scatter, and if that doesn't work, I use pet corrector as a loud noise or pepper spray if needed. I also encourage you to consider a physical intervention, such as a secondary leash or an umbrella that you could open in front of that dog. Another tip for finding safe places to practice, and I don't use this one very frequently, but it's to train from inside of a vehicle. Typically, I only suggest this in more extreme cases of reactivity or aggression if the dog also has no leash skills. This allows the guardian to start working on behavior modification while they also separately start working on leash training with no triggers present. However, if this commenter lives in an area where off-leash dogs are always a concern, this might be a great way to safely start training. Another great tip if you feel like you don't have anyone to practice with is to post on social media asking for help. I actually met one of my best friends this way because one of my out-of-town acquaintances posted on social media saying that she knew somebody in my city that was looking for help. They were hoping that someone with a calm dog would be willing to meet up for reactivity practice, and I agreed to go. She's actually now one of my best friends, and our dogs have gone for many walks together. You would be surprised how many people are willing to help if you just ask. And for my next tip, I'm going to go get some props. So my next tip is to use stuffed animals. This might sound crazy, but it actually really works, especially when you first start reactivity training. Very commonly, if I'm meeting a reactivity client for the first time, I will bring both of these stuffed animals. It allows us to have a calm dog to test their dog's threshold with. You will sometimes see in my videos that I bring my dog to training sessions. However, I prefer starting with the stuffies for a couple reasons.
Good job.
First, I don't think it's fair to bring my dog until I know more about the client's dog. 2, I'll spend a decent portion of time indoors talking to that client before we go outside, and with the temperatures in my city, it would be unsafe to make my dog wait in that vehicle. And 3, if needed, I can easily leave the stuffy on the sidewalk as I walk back and forth to discuss what I'm seeing with that client. If you're a dog trainer, I highly encourage you to add these to your toolbox. This little stuffed animal is the one I usually start with because it's quite small, it has neutral body language, yes, I'm being serious, and it tends to not trigger dogs as heavily. Whereas this one, as you can see, it's quite large, its head is turned to the side, so it's almost like it's giving my client's dog a hard stare, which is more triggering, and I tend to use this one to see in a harder situation how much distance that client's dog needs to stay under threshold. If you think that your dog is too smart for this and that they would know that it's a stuffed animal, I can assure you that they will not. You need to keep in mind that you're going to be testing from a fair distance, not up close. I will often even put a leash on these stuffed dogs so that it looks more realistic with me standing from a distance away. I have a really funny side story with this one. So I had this one on leash. I was about a block away from my client's house because we were going to meet up to do the testing. Had it on leash, standing there on the sidewalk with us. And a mom and her daughter came outside onto the front porch, and the little girl asked me if she could pet my dog. I had to very awkwardly tell them that it wasn't a real dog, and I saw this look on the mom's face of just probably assuming I'm completely crazy. And she put her arm around a kid and ushered her kid back inside. And it's one of the most mortifying things I have ever experienced as a dog trainer. But it should reassure you that if you think that your dog's going to be able to tell the difference, often children can't. If you truly don't have access to a dog that you can practice with, enlist a friend and try these. You can laugh about it together later. I'm sort of tempted to film the rest of the video with this one just in my lap because it's funny, but let's put it away. It feels so boring sitting here by myself now. So my dog is not supposed to be up here. She's about 2 weeks post-op from TPLO surgery for a torn ACL in her back leg. She's not allowed to jump at all, so we've been really preventing her from being up on the couch, but I felt pretty lonely without my stuffed dog, so she's gonna film with me. Let's get back to you and finish this video. So the other part of the commenter's question is that she mentioned that the dog wasn't interested in treats when outside. I'm going to assume that she knows what's high value to her dog, but if not, I would strongly suggest you watch this video. Regardless of where you're working on reactivity, one really important thing is that you need to get really good at management. I define management as anything that prevents the rehearsal of an undesirable behavior. When we're out training in the real world, we can't always control what's going to happen, so we need to have really strong management skills to prevent reactions. Some of my absolute favorites are treat scatters, the up and down game, funnel hand, or as I call it, Kong hand, and probably most importantly, a really strong emergency U-turn. I'll link a step-by-step tutorial for how I teach a U-turn in the caption and comments. And lastly, we need to remember that the dog's food motivation, regardless of food value, is going to be affected by how they feel. Dog reactivity is almost always a fear-based response. So ask yourself, how would your appetite be if you were around something that you were really scared of? I absolutely love donuts, and I would pretty much always say yes to one, but I wouldn't want one if there was a spider on my head.
Much bigger problems.
Likewise, the intensity of the trigger is going to affect your dog's response and food motivation. If you're struggling with your dog's food motivation during training, I strongly encourage you to watch this video on Threshold next. It'll explain everything.